I never thought a day would come when my own son would look me in the eyes and say I wasn't his real father. You know that kind of pain that doesn't just hit your chest? It sinks deep, like someone ripped out your heart, stomped on it, and then handed it back with a smile. That's what it felt like. He said it so casually, too, in front of people, like it was some kind of joke. He's not my real dad, he said, pointing to me. My stepdad earned that title. I just stood there frozen. I didn't even know what to say. After everything I'd done, every sleepless night, every scraped knee I'd bandaged, every birthday I'd made special, how could he erase all that with one sentence? So tell me, was I wrong for what I did next? Or would you have done the same thing if you were in my place? Let me start from the beginning. My name's Daniel. I'm 43 years old, and I have a 17-year-old son named Ryan. When Ryan was born, I was the happiest man alive. I married his mother, Laura. When we were both in our mid-20s, we were young in love and completely unprepared for how life can twist and turn. When Laura told me she was pregnant, I cried. Actual tears. I remember holding that tiny ultrasound photo, barely able to make out the shape, but already knowing this was my world now. When Ryan was born, I was there. I cut the cord. I held him first. I whispered him that I'd always protect him, no matter what. And for the first 12 years of his life, that's exactly what I did. But marriage doesn't always last just because love once existed. Laura and I started drifting apart when Ryan was about 10. She said I worked too much. She said I was distant. But the truth was I was working hard for them. To keep food on the table, to pay for Ryan's school, his soccer team, his braces. I thought I was doing the right thing, being a responsible husband and father. But Laura said she felt lonely. I guess loneliness can make people do things they regret because one night I found messages on her phone from a man named Greg. At first, I didn't want to believe it. I told myself it was innocent, but the messages weren't innocent. They were full of late, and I miss you. And I can't wait to see you again. I confronted her. She cried, apologized, said it was just emotional, that nothing physical had happened yet. I wanted to believe her, but my gut told me the truth. Within a few months, she filed for divorce. Ryan was 12 then, and I swear I tried my best to keep things civil for his sake. I told Laura we could share custody, and we did for a while. But Greg, the man she cheated with, slowly became part of Ryan's life. At first, he was Mom's friend, then Mom's boyfriend. And before I knew it, he was stepdad Greg. I'll admit it hurt seeing Ryan get close to him. Every time I picked him up from Laura's house, he'd tell me stories about how Greg took him fishing, or how Greg taught him to fix a bike chain, or how Greg let him stay up late watching movies. I'd smile and nod, pretending I was okay with it, but inside I felt like I was being replaced. I never said anything bad about Greg in front of Ryan. I didn't want to poison his mind or make him feel like he had to choose sides. I thought if I just keep being a good dad, if I just keep showing up, Ryan will know who's always been there for him. But as he got older, things started changing. He began canceling our weekends more often. I've got plans with friends, he'd say, or Greg's taking me camping. At first, I understood teenagers need space, right? But then, even when we were together, it felt like he wasn't there. He was always texting Greg, talking about Greg, comparing me to Greg. Once he even said, Greg knows way more about cars than you do, Dad. I laughed it off, but it stung. I wasn't jealous of the man. At least I told myself I wasn't. I was just scared I was losing my son. Then came the worst day of my life. The day I realized I had lost him was a family event at Ryan's school. Some kind of Father's Day brunch. They invited both dads if the kid had a stepdad or separated parents. Laura brought Greg, of course. I showed up alone. I'd brought Ryan a small gift watch. Nothing fancy, but I'd saved up to get him something nice. When I got there, Ryan was with his friends laughing, showing them something on his phone. I walked up, ready to surprise him. He saw me and froze for a second, then smiled awkwardly. Hey, Dad, he said, but before I could respond, one of his friends asked, guys, that your real dad or your stepdad? And then Ryan said it. That's my biological dad, he replied. Greg's my real dad. He earned it. I swear everything around me just went silent. I looked at him, waiting for him to take it back, to laugh and say he was joking, but he didn't. He just kept talking to his friends like I wasn't even there. I walked away before I said something I'd regret. I sat in my car for 20 minutes, just staring at the steering wheel, trying not to break down. It felt like someone had taken every memory, every bedtime story, every hug, and thrown it in the trash. After that day, something inside me changed. I stopped chasing him. I stopped trying to compete with Greg. But at the same time, I knew I couldn't just disappear from his life. I kept paying for his school expenses, for his sports, for everything Laura asked for. I still texted him every week, even when he didn't respond. I showed up for his soccer games, even when he didn't look for me in the stands. Then, last year, I got sick. Not life-threatening sick, but bad enough to put me in the hospital for a week. I didn't tell anyone at first, but I thought maybe Ryan would visit. He didn't. Laura texted once saying she was sorry to hear, and that was it. Greg didn't say anything. I lay there in that sterile hospital bed thinking, is this what being a dad means now? That you give everything and end up forgotten? When I got home, I decided something had to change. I wasn't going to keep pouring my soul into people who treated me like an afterthought, but the universe had other plans. A few months later, Laura called. Greg had lost his job. Their finances were tight. Ryan wanted to go to college, and they needed help. She asked if I could contribute. And you know what? I said yes, not because I wanted to impress anyone, but because I didn't want Ryan to suffer because of adult problems. I paid his first semester tuition up front. It was a big chunk of my savings, but I did it without hesitation. Then, a few months later, I found out something that broke me again. Ryan had been telling people, including his college friends, that Greg was the one paying for everything. that Greg was the reason he got to go to college. That Greg believed in him. I found out because one of my coworkers' kids went to the same university. They mentioned it casually. Oh, your ex-wife's husband is really supporting Ryan, huh? I didn't even know how to respond. So that's the situation I was in. A son who didn't acknowledge me, a mother who let it happen, and a stepfather who got all the credit. Before I tell you what I did next, I want you to think about it. Put yourself in my shoes. Would you keep paying? Would you keep quiet and let them walk all over you? Or would you do something to remind them who you really are? Take a second and comment what you would have done, because this is where things took a turn. A few weeks later, I got a call from Laura again. She said Ryan's tuition was due for the next semester. I told her I couldn't afford it this time. She got angry, said I was jeopardizing Ryan's education. I told her calmly that Greg could pay this time. After all, he'd earned the title of real dad, right? She went silent. Then she said, "You're being petty?" Maybe I was, but I'd had enough. I wasn't going to keep being the invisible provider while someone else took my place emotionally. Word got around quickly. Ryan called me a few days later, furious. "Why would you do that?" He shouted over the phone. "Greg's been helping me way more than you ever did." That one hit hard. I asked him, "Do you even know who paid for your first semester?" There was silence. "It was me, Ryan," I said quietly. "Not Greg." "Not your mommy." He didn't believe me. He accused me of lying just to make Greg look bad. That's when I sent him the receipt from the university, the one with my name on it. There was a long pause. Then he hung up. I didn't hear from him for weeks. Then one day I got an unexpected visitor. Ryan showed up at my house. He looked angry, but beneath that, I could see guilt in his eyes. He asked me why I didn't tell him before. I told him it wasn't about credit. It was about love. That I didn't need him to praise me. I just wanted him to remember that I'd always been there. He sat down, and for the first time in years, we actually talked. He admitted that Greg had been filling his head with stories. That I'd abandoned them, that I didn't care, that I only paid because the court forced me to. I told Ryan the truth about everything. The late nights, the sacrifices, the times I'd chosen to work overtime just to make sure he never went without. Ryan broke down. He cried like he was 12 years old again. He said he was sorry, said he didn't know, said he'd been stupid. And you know what? I cried too, because hearing those words after years of silence was like a weight lifting off my chest. He told me he confronted Greg afterward, and apparently things got heated. Greg admitted he'd exaggerated things to make himself look better. Laura called me later, saying I'd caused problems in her marriage. But I didn't care anymore. For the first time in years, I felt like my son saw me again. It's been a few months since then. Ryan and I are rebuilding our relationship slowly but surely. We meet once a week, grab lunch, talk about life. He even asked if I'd help him get a car. And this time, when I said yes, he told everyone I was the one helping him. It's funny how things come full circle. But I won't lie. There's still a scar there. A part of me that still remembers that day at school when he said I wasn't his real father. You can forgive, but you never really forget, do you? Still, I'm proud of him. He's growing, learning. And maybe that's what being a parent is, loving your kid even when they don't deserve it and hoping that someday they'll understand what that love really meant. So, yeah, that's my story. I'm not sure if I handled everything perfectly. Maybe I should have been tougher earlier. Maybe I should have fought harder to keep him close. But at the end of the day, I know I did what I could. And when he called me dad, again, for the first time after years of calling Greg that, it made every tear, every sleepless night, every moment of doubt worth it. So tell me, what do you think? Was I wrong for finally standing up for myself? Would you have kept paying and staying quiet, or would you have done exactly what I did? If you were on my side, make sure to like this video because it really helps the channel. Subscribe for more stories like this one, and don't forget to comment below. I read every single one of your thoughts. Thanks for listening to my story, and I'll see you all in the next one.